got big.
But look at this thing, Brett. Would you look at the size of this?
I know, it's
Who
very,
else has this?
it's really, Megan, it confirms that you really, really are very, very important.
Thank you. I feel validated.
All right. Thanks very much. That was great. I loved it. Chris, I hear you got another race to call.
Yes, we do. And because of my technical legerdemain, all I get are blue cards. That's everything. That's all I'm being given here. We got a big race to call in the state of Kentucky, and that is Fox News projects that Mitch McConnell, the incumbent, the Senate minority leader, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate seeking a fifth term, has been elected. The senator from Kentucky over millionaire businessman Bruce Lunsford. This is a race that was strong for the Republicans until a couple of weeks ago when, with everything that was hitting Republicans across the country, this wasn't in doubt, and there were a couple of polls that show Lunsford actually ahead. Mitch McConnell, interestingly enough, ran on the idea earmarks are good and that he had brought hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. The Kentuckians apparently thought that was just fine, and they have reelected Mitch McConnell.
Well, you know, Chris, I think that's an important race. They see the Liddy Dole race there as well.
Yeah,
we're now projecting that.
Yes, we are now projecting that there has been another turnover in the state of North Carolina. Kay Hagan, state senator, has beaten Elizabeth Dole, seeking a second term, former transportation secretary under Reagan, labor secretary under President Bush. Of course, the wife of Bob Dole, and she has lost in a mean race in the state of North Carolina. That is another net pickup for the Democrats tonight. They have picked up 2 in Virginia and North Carolina, but they have failed to pick up in another one of the toss-up states, and that was in the state of Kentucky, where the Republicans held on to Mitch McConnell's seat.
Well, that really wasn't one of the ones that they were counting on, were they, to get to their magic number of 60?
Kentucky?
Yeah.
Well, there are 11 toss-ups, all held by Republicans. They need to win 9 of 11. They've won 2. They've lost 1.
Right.
They've only got they've got to win everything except 1. They can lose 1 more, and they have to win all the rest. They have to go 7-1 to get.
So if, for example, Saxby-Chambliss holds on in Georgia,
they could still do it, but they couldn't lose
got to win.
anymore.
They can't win anything. They can't lose anything else.
Exactly.
All right. Very interesting stuff. All right. So what? Well, panel, I'm bound to say that if I were a Democrat, House or Senate tonight, I would not think it. I would think it decidedly bad news that Mitch McConnell had been reelected. I mean, he has, Fred, wouldn't you agree, proven to be remarkably effective for a minority leader. I mean, the Senate makes it possible, clearly, but I think he's been a real fly in their ointment, hasn't he?
Well, he's been effective in one thing, and that is a filibuster strategy. And if you're a Republican leader and you can get 41 votes, you can block anything. You know, the majority has to get to shut off debate and then vote on some piece of legislation, has to have 60 votes. So if you get 41, you prevent them from getting 60, since there are 100 senators. Now, on some votes, and maybe card check, the one that would allow unions to organize employers without a secret ballot, would be, he may be able to, even with 42 or 43 Republican senators, still be able to get 41. On card check, he only lost 1 Republican when that was blocked by filibuster.
Right.
So, I mean, look, what was the one thing Republicans did, other than the decision by President Bush on the surge, that was successful in Washington, in particular, over the last 2 years? It was the filibusters led by Mitch McConnell that blocked lots of liberal legislation.
But the other race we just talked about is really, to me, truly the stunning one, which is the upset of Elizabeth Dole. I mean,
you knew she was in trouble, though, right?
We knew she was in trouble, but this is, first of all, North Carolina. This has been a reliably Republican state, and she's somebody who's been in the public eye for decades. I mean, this is a very familiar public figure, and the level of desperation that she was feeling, you could sense yourself when you looked at the advertisement that she put out trying to link Kay Hagan, her opponent, to these godless atheists group. And I think, you know, and Kay Hagan, by the way, being a Presbyterian Sunday school teacher, and I think the effect of that was to backfire on Elizabeth Dole, and I think she pushed too far, and I think that hurt her in the end.
Just briefly here, we got another projection we can make from the presidential race. We now project, Fox News projects Barack Obama the winner in New Hampshire. That was a state that was looked like it was leaning his direction, but it was not thought impossible for John McCain to win there. So that's a bit of bad news for him, a bit of good news, not big, but important perhaps for Obama. Bill?
This is going to be a bad night for Republicans, I think. And if you put it together with the last election, we're going to have something that hasn't happened in 50 years, which is 2 years in a row, it now seems safe to say, in which Republicans will have lost a substantial...
2 elections in a row.
I'm sorry, 2 elections in a row in which Republicans will have lost seats in the Senate, I think a non-trivial number of seats each time, 2006 and 2008. They will have lost double-digit seats in the House, no matter, that seems to be the case pretty safely this year, that they'll at least lose 10 seats and probably more like 20. They lost, I think, close to 30 in 2006. And they may well lose the presidency this year as well. So it's been a long time since a party has had two so bad back-to-back elections.
It raises an intriguing question, Juan, and that is this. We have seen congressional approval ratings which were really bad going into the 2006 election. Republicans then in control. Right. They took a bath in the elections. The Democrats got control of both houses. Since then, the congressional approval ratings have continued to deteriorate. And yet we have what appears to be another night in which Democrats gain ground. That seems a little bit remarkable. Perhaps it's because the voters were not ready yet, with George Bush still in the White House and Republicans mounting filibusters or whatever, to assign full responsibility for everything that happened or didn't to the Democrats. Will that change now in your judgment?
I think it has to change, because what we're looking at is not only are you going to have Democratic majorities in the House and Senate, but they are going to be large majorities. And if you look at what we've seen now with Kay Hagan's victory in the state senator in North Carolina, and by the way, just as a historical point, that was Jesse Helms' seat. Right. And that's an indication of how much that state has changed. And again, we've seen tremendous increases in new people registering to vote in many states, particularly I think of, like Nevada +12, Virginia +9, Ohio 8% growth in terms of new voters. But when you stop and look at the research triangle area, and you look at the fact that those people coming in are younger, more Democratic, that's a change in terms of the old South, and portends greater change. Now, you asked about the responsibility. I think that the voters still viewed the 8 years of George W. Bush as a Republican time, when you had, for the most of that period, Republicans in control of House and Senate, not changing until the 06 cycle. So what they're saying now is they hold Republicans responsible, and I don't see how they can hold Republicans responsible going forward, because we're going to have these large majorities. The thing to watch, though, and you talked about McConnell as an effective block to Democratic initiatives, is that I think people are sick of this kind of partisanship, and if it's the case that you're simply going to have a hard core of Republicans, and we're having a number of moderate Republicans knocked off. Elizabeth Dole was a moderate Republican. To have her knocked off, to have people, who are retiring, Virginia, Warner in Colorado, Ben Nighthorse Campbell, Pete Domenici in New Mexico, you have these people going away. Now you're going to have really hardcore Republicans, and if you have Mitch McConnell simply representing, a backbench, angry Republican Party, I don't think that's good for the party. He's going to have to work with Democrats on something to be able to say he's not the obstructionist.
We're going to talk more about this as we go through the night. We're going to take a brief break now. More to come.
America's election headquarters coverage of Election 2008 is brought to you by Divided We Fail. Demand action from the presidential candidates and our leaders at dividedwefail.org.
It's at my brother's wedding, and I was having some severe pains. The next morning, I was rushed to the ER. I had no idea how expensive these pills were going to be. They just kept coming and coming. I had health insurance, and they barely covered what, it was like getting a medical coupon. It was like getting 5% off my medical bills. I'm embarrassed that I had to declare bankruptcy. It can happen to anybody. I guess that's a story that everybody should know, and I think something needs to be done about it.
A single CSX train carries the load of 280 trucks. Imagine what that can do for your drive. CSX, how tomorrow moves.
I thought I could trust you.
You don't.
Well, we never really know anyone, do we?
You don't have to worry about me.
If you could avoid killing every possible lead, it would be deeply appreciated.
I'll do my best.
I've heard that before.
system of salt